Hey, this is Eric with ProgramWithEric.com, and today we're going to do a basic authentication example using Ember and using an Express server. So I already created the basic authentication example project, so we'll get started. So before we start, let's generate some files and generate a service. We're going to hold our session information. And an adapter for our application. Controller for the login. Student model. A login route. Students route. We're going to create an index template. We're going to create a server. By the way, there is a built-in Express server inside Ember CLI. Not many people use it, but it's actually pretty helpful and handy. I usually use Ember CLI Mirage for everything, but for this example, we'll go ahead and use this. And just a little easier than creating a separate Express server and then proxying it over. And then you need a body parser. So we're going to go ahead and look first and look at our services. Our session service is going to be where we are going to inject the service into our system, our application. It's going to do our authentication. It's going to pass a login and password over. And it's going to return Ember Ajax call. Oops. And it's going to be a post method. URL is going to be /token. Data is going to include our username and password. And then if we get good information back, we'll then set the token and we'll be using this token in our program to be sending information back and forth. I'm not going to worry about an error coming through. We could if we wanted to, but just for now, to keep it simple, we will assume that if the data is good, we'll go ahead and set the token back in to the info, set the token from the info retrieved back from the server. And if we look at our server here, you can see this is what it comes with out of the box. We don't really need most of this stuff, so we're going to go ahead and delete it. We'll leave that though. We want to use the body parser. Now we're not going to use this stuff. We're going to set a post request for the token URL. And then we'll do some checks in here. Direct.body.username. And we're just going to hard code the username and password. Obviously, this wouldn't make sense if this was production, but it's not, so we'll just assume we'll just hard code something really silly in here. So if they match, then we'll send our secret access token over. Which is, of course, secret code. No one will ever guess that. Else, we'll send status 400 with that error. We'll call it invalid grant. That looks good. And let's go ahead and do one more thing here. Let's say they wanted to access a part of the application that they should be able to access. So we'll go ahead and add this body parser here. We'll do a GET request here. So if they go to API/students, we'll do a few more checks here. If direct.headers authorization does not equal bearer secret code, then we'll send back for one status, which means they're not authorized. Else, we'll return status 200. This is all part of the HTTP spec, so I won't get into many details here. And we'll send a students array back. And we'll assume we'll have an ID 1, name, we'll call it Eric, age 24, 23, doesn't really matter. And we'll send one more. ID 2, name Bob, and we'll make his age 52. And that looks good. So now we have a little bit of our backend server here. So let's take a look at we have the service. Let's take a look at our application.js file in our adapters folder. And we're going to go ahead and use the REST adapter here. And we can do a lot of things here. We can extend the REST adapter, so we're going to use the namespace API, so all requests will have to go through API. We're going to go ahead and inject the session service. Since the name is session, we don't have to specify the name of it in here. And we'll go headers, and this will make sure that every time we do a request, that the authorization is sent correctly. So this just says at any time, we talked a little bit about computer properties in the previous video, but we just want to make sure that anytime the token changes, that we return the correct authorization header. And we'll use bear that looks good. So we'll make sure this authorization bear is sent after every request using the REST adapter. And we'll just take a look at our students model. Looks okay there. And we'll have our route, our students route. And let's make sure here we return student data. And we'll look at our students template here. And we'll assume that they were able to authenticate. If they are, then they should be able to see all the data in here. Student name, and then the age of the student. And now we need to make sure we can allow someone to log in. So we'll look at our login template, and we'll use the input helper. And just to make it a little nicer, we'll have the placeholder. And we'll put the input for the password. Once again, we'll have the placeholder for that. And since it is a password, it'll add a type password. And then we'll have a button, which will run authenticate. and we'll call it login. We'll close the button tag. So there's one more thing we need to do is now we have this authenticate action, so we need to do something with it. So we'll look at our controllers and look at our login, and we'll just set these to null. It's not really necessary, but we'll just do it just so we understand that they're there. And once again, we'll inject the service we created earlier, and we'll create some actions. Well, one action, authenticate. And inside our authenticate, we'll get the session, and we'll call authenticate on it, and we'll pass in the login name, and we'll also I'll put this on another line so it's easier to see. We'll pass in the password, and then if all goes well, if it logs in okay, we'll just put an alert message that logged in, and then we'll do a transition to the correct route. Else, we'll capture the error. From there, we'll do alert error with login and do this. Just make sure we have that in there. We'll delete this, extra parentheses there. And finally, we'll go to our application. Actually, we'll go to our index, and we'll add a link. Well, we'll go ahead and do this. We'll go to application. Doesn't really matter. We'll go link to login. And we'll go login here. Link to. Actually, we'll go ahead and move that to the index. Doesn't really matter that much. Okay. So we get everything in place. Let's see what happens. Server's still running, no errors. Alright, click login here. 1 second. Actually, I found a problem here. If we look back in our application adapter, there was a semicolon right here, and so that's not supposed to be there. So I deleted that, and then I had to stop and restart my Ember server. So now, when I reload it, I don't get any errors. If I click login here, so I'll just put some random text in there. I get an error with login. Get this big long error, 500 error. So let's see what happened here. Oops, it looks like we have 2 quick errors to fix. We have to go back into our application adapter, and I had session.ember injection, so it's actually ember inject. And also inside my server file, I had the body parser URL encoded. It was after the app.post, so it was impossible to actually decode the rect body, so I actually had to put it above the post like this. And now I can refresh. If I put in a wrong password and login, I get this error, invalid grant. But if I put in Eric password and click login, I get the alert message logged in, and here I am to my route, and I got the information from the server, Eric23 Bob52, as we suspected. So if I go back to the students route, I can do name, age, and 1 second here. I have to go back and log in again to make this work. I log in again, logged in, now I'm transitioned over and it looks okay. Alright, so this is just a really basic, simple example of using authentication, using our session here, using just a quick AJAX call, sending over the username and password, and then once it resolves correctly, getting the token and setting the token in the session. We created a server using the built-in Express server inside Ember CLI, but once again we could have just pulled this out and had its own server. It's been a little more complicated, but it's been just as easy. We use the body parser here. We're looking for a post, HTTP post to /token. We check the username and password. If everything's okay, we send back a special access token called secret code. If not, we give a 400 invalid grant. We also have an API students, where if the token that comes over correctly has the bare secret code. If it doesn't have it, then we give unauthorized. If it does have it, we return a students array. And we were able to do that because we have an application adapter that gets the session token, and then every request sent over will have the special session token in it. So that's just the basics of how you do it. You can see here's our login controller with our authenticate. Once again, we just send over the login name and password, and if everything goes well, we then transition over to the students route. So like I said, once again, this is just a basic example of how to get a program working with some basic authentication. Later on, we'll take a look at something a little more complicated with Ember Simple Auth. This example is actually part of my Ember.js Cookbook, so take a look at the links below. You can buy it and get a lot more detailed information, and also information about some more authentication examples. And you can also get information about my website and mailing list, where you can get some great cheat sheets. Thanks.